for households and communities. It actually got released yesterday by the New South Wales Energy Minister at the Clean Energy Summit up in Sydney. That is Australia's first guide to battery storage, which we developed in collaboration with the Total Environment Centre. So we're pretty excited about it. Even though it's New South Wales, there's lots of really general information in there about battery storage. So we went around to quite a few different states and also to the federal government as well, going, we cannot keep up with the demand at the moment on people wanting information on battery storage. We need a consumer guide, and we need it in a way that people can actually understand what battery storage is. And even at some of that high level communications, it's not just the nuts and bolts how to install it. It's more like, well, do I want one? And will the battery storage system I get actually keep my lights on if there is a blackout? So all those different questions that people need to ask and general information. So we'll be sending out an e-bulletin tomorrow, which will have the direct links, so you'll be able to have a look at the battery storage guide. Encourage any of you, if you're ever talking to any of your local members in Victoria or elsewhere, to say that we should have a Victorian energy storage guide, because that's what we'll be doing as well.
Do you know what the web address is, Donna, on that?
I can't remember, so as I said, we'll be sending it out tomorrow.
It's on the Facebook page.
Yeah, it's up on the ATA Facebook too as well. We've also do all our general other information materials. At the top up there is all the different ebooks that we put together and go out. As ATA members, you get access to all those ebooks for free, which you can actually download. And then there's other just general information materials. This is a brochure that we use and give out at shows and other events. It's just called Going Off Gas. It's just a follow-on for the research that we did a few years ago on fuel switching, on encouraging households to cut off from their gas connections, go to an all-electric home. Not only will you get savings on your energy bills, but actually help reduce your carbon emissions from your own home as well. So we've sort of developed a range of different DL brochures that actually talks about the benefits of going off gas. And of course, then we have the inspirational case studies, and a lot of it is from our members who are actually doing all this work in their own homes already. So I'm sure all of you, or most of you, know about our Renew and Sanctuary magazine, and to our non-member, you might be able to take away these at the end of the day, since you might not have them already. So we include in those magazines actual case studies of people walking and talking in their own homes, so showing other people that it actually can be done and how you can do it in your own home as well. The other new thing that we've been doing is we're taking over Sustainable House Day. A lot of you might know about Sustainable House Day. It's a national event that happens in September every year. As of 2 years ago, ATA became the official organisers of the event. Just for us, because we just knew that it just had such great potential to actually really change people and what they want to do. Because as we all know, if there's an auction going on in your street, everyone wants to go in and have a look at the house. Everyone loves looking at other people's houses, and having people go in and talk to the homeowners, so they're not talking to a salesperson, they're not talking to an architect or designer, they can talk directly to the person who lives there and goes, how does it work? What works really well for you? What doesn't work well? What should I do differently if you did it again? So we know that peer-to-peer communication on talking about what works in your own home, as well as actually seeing and feeling it really works. And this is from Sustainable House Day last year, from one of the houses that we had open here in Melbourne. And we partnered up with the CRC for Low Carbon Living just to do a little bit of impact analysis of Sustainable House Day. And after last year's event, within 2 weeks, over 30% of people had already taken action in their own home, or something that they'd learned on the day. Over 50% of people had identified what they were going to do. And there was about 89% of people who did word of mouth of what they learned on the day. So that just shows the powerful impact it does, that people actually go and visit their homes. So we're gearing up for Sustainable House Day for this year, which is going to be on September the 17th. We've already got 110 houses registered. We're hoping to go to a target of 200. So if anyone's here interested in opening up their own home, please let me know. So we had 150 open yesterday, so again, last year. So getting to 200 would be another big step for us. The other aspect of what we do at the ATA is the one-on-one advice. So we can create fact sheets and we can create case studies, but what we've really worked out over the last few years is people want a one-on-one conversation with a person to go, how does this work in my particular circumstances? So we're doing two things to meet that need at the ATA. One is we run these events called Speed Data Sustainability Expert. We've been run about 35 of these around the country so far. So what we usually do is get a group of about 20 experts. They might be on energy efficiency, solar, on water, on gardens, or architect and building designer. And we line them up, and then people can actually get a free 20-minute consult with those different experts. So they can bring along their house plans, they can bring along their electricity bills, and have a bit of a one-on-one conversation on what they can potentially do in their own home. And it's been really powerful impact, and we've been running it for a couple of years with a council in Sydney in Marrickville. And at last year's event, we had this person rock up, and I was at the registration desk. He's going, "Oh, I come back." He goes, "I was here last year." He goes, "I actually not registered here. I've just come back to say thank you to the expert from last year." So he had actually got a consult with the energy efficiency expert, and he just gave him a whole range of things of like even just insulating his hot water system, and all these just simple energy efficient things he could do, and he had a really drastic reduction in his energy bills, and he was just so grateful for that free information that he came back the next year just to say thank you. So you can just see that people sometimes just need to give that one-on-one encouragement. The other thing that we're doing is that we'll be launching soon a new expansion of our advice service that we've been offering for a few years. I'll talk about that a bit further. So with these speed dating events, they're really popular. We run them in conjunction with local councils, so they actually pay for us to run those events. And we're doing most of them in Melbourne and Sydney at the moment, but we have also been over to Perth, Brisbane a few times, and Adelaide as well. The other final aspect of the piece of the puzzle of what ATA does in helping consumers and households is the advocacy work. So we can do all this work in our own households and communities, but we actually need to advocate so we can get long-term change, and also advocate so we can actually make it easier for the next run of people to come through. And a sort of the example I give to people about ATA's advocacy work is just looking at solar PV. So about 10 years ago, to actually put PV on and actually trying to negotiate with your retailer, you might ring up going, "Hey, I've got this new PV system, just want to, hook up to the grid," and they'll be like, "I don't know who you are and how to handle this and which department to go to." So quite a few years ago, our first bit of policy work was actually trying to make some standardised contracts for people who want to connect to the grid. I also did some policy work with our distributors and retailers on how they actually can streamline the systems, as well as then help advocate for a feed-in tariff to encourage people to actually uptake of solar PV as well. So the reason why it's a lot more easier, even though I know Andrew would tell me examples when it's not, to connect to the grid these days is because of the sort of that pioneering policy work that we had to do to help transition and advocate to make sure let's make it easier for people in the future that they can actually hook onto the grid. And that's sort of an example of the approach that we take to our policy work. So at the moment, we're doing lots of work, of course, with the Finkel review that's out at the moment, and Andrew's going to talk a little bit more in the context of what's happening at the policy level, but also, once again, talking about what's new and emerging in this sector at the moment, and what policies do we need in place so we can really fasten up this transition to a renewable future. So there's my circle, and now it's sort of across the ground. So this is like looking at all the different ways that we interact with households. So if they're at the research stage, if they want to get the one advice, we do all that work just so that we can help enable and represent and inspire people to live sustainably in homes and communities. But what we want to get to is that vision at the top. Like, why do we do this and what we want to do? And of course, there's things like reduced carbon emissions, but there's all those other benefits that we know of what happens if we actually create our homes to be more sustainable and more sustainable communities. You've got the extra benefits of energy and water security, you've got improved health and well-being, you've got actually more connected communities, you've also got the bill savings as well as we are in a changing climate at the moment, and we do need to make our homes more resilient to that changing climate. So we need to make sure that we are making our houses more firmly efficient for when we're going to get more of those extreme heat days as well. So that's a little bit of the ATA ethos of why we exist and what we're actually doing. And don't just take me for it, just about 6 weeks ago we got awarded by the United Nations Association Australia for a Climate Change Leadership Award. So this was quite the most competitive part of the awards that they run every year on the Environment Day. This is Lily D'Ambrosio giving me the award there. And it's just more that out of all the different organisations across Australia, they identify the work that the ATA is doing, the comprehensive approach and how we do it, is actually making a real impact on what people should be doing as we transition to this renewable future. So where are we at the moment with ATA? At the moment, we're slightly engaging with over 250,000 people a year. So that's through our magazines, through our events, through all the work we do with our partner organisations. That's how many that we can actually track down people that we're actually interacting with. We're at our highest membership levels ever, so we're just at 6,400, so I have to update that intro for you, Rob, so it's just gone up by another 200. And we're continually growing at the moment with our membership as well. We're growing the number of events to help with our reach, so with Sustainable House Day and with our speed dating events. We're doing lots of more work on advocacy in the reform of the national energy market. Once again, Andrew might talk a little bit more about that in his presentation. It's a little bit hard to keep up with things at the moment. I think there's about 20 or 30 different inquiries or committees or standing committees at a state, territory and federal level looking at energy market reform or climate change in some way at the moment. So we can't engage with all the processes, so we're dealing with quite a few of them. We're also struggling to keep up with the interest in solar and batteries. So batteries are just creating all this buzz in the community, and it's not just the early adopters, which a lot of the ATA members are. It's actually this broader community of people going, we cannot trust the politicians to look after the energy market. They actually cannot do it. Like, we've been in this paralysis for 10 years, and what we're seeing now is the system is starting to break down a little bit because of it. You've got industry, you've got commercial interests rolling out to say, just give us some certainty on policy. And consumers out there are just actually lost all faith in the whole system. So I think there's some research came out a couple of weeks ago, and I think electricity retailers are virtually even lower, than the banks even in trust out there in the community. And people actually just want some sort of independence and certainty on their energy security. And it's a real mainstream sort of build up at the moment, and we're starting to see that in a lot of the work that we do with some of our partner organisations. So we've been doing a series of talks, for example, with RACV, and they're selling out their solar and battery talks within an hour. They sold out 400 seats. It's just so much interest at the moment, and some of it is the batteries, and some of it is the climate that we are at the moment in energy policy. So what we're focused on then for the next 6 months at the ATA is that we'll be we're about to launch probably in the next 2-3 weeks a new portal on the ATA website, which is going to help with all that interest in solar and batteries. So using what Andrew's developed with the simulator, which some of you might have used, it's quite more of a complex, like an Excel spreadsheet on steroids, I call it. But we're actually now going to have a really simple portal where you can put in your postcode, your energy use, if you're, how often you're home, how many people in the house. So there's about 5 questions, and from that you'll be able to get a report that will say, this is, a 5 kilowatt solar system will cost you about this much, and this is your expected savings, this is how many cars, CO2 emissions to take off the road, and I'll do it for solar and batteries in a number of different configurations. So it's like a quick and easy, estimate on what you can do with solar and batteries. So we'll be launching that, and at the same time we'll be launching a bit more of our next stage in our advice service. So for many years we've been providing advice to ATA members. You can call up and get a 15-20 minute chat on the phone to one of our experts. We're now going to have more of a paid advice. You can still get that as a member, but there's also going to be a paid advice service for non-members where they can actually get more of a consult on what they can actually do. So, and we'll be promoting out that with a number of our project partners, and it'll also be available for ATA members who want more in-depth analysis, and also, but of course, it's going to be at a reduced rate. The other major project we're looking at the moment is updating our research we did a few years ago on fuel switching, which I mentioned. So this was the going off gas report, which is actually about 2.5 years old now. So we've got some funding to update that research, and it's been peer reviewed for Frontier Economics, so we'll be able to have their credibility behind it as well when we get to a launch. That's probably another couple of months away, probably, Andrew, the gas report. Yeah. So we just got a bit more work we have to do on that one, but we'll be really excited when we actually launch that new analysis. There's a little peek of some of that analysis in the latest issue of Review that you might have seen as well. Sustainable House Day, as I mentioned, that's on September the 17th, so tell all your family and friends and come and talk to me if you're interested in opening up your home. The Finkel Review and Energy Market Advocacy has said there's a lot of work going on in that space. We have Dean Lombard, who's in our office, and he's the one who does a lot of the work on our energy advocacy. There's a detailed bit of analysis on our take on the Finkel Review as well. You can download that, and that's on the ATA website if you want to have a read of it. Following on to what Michael was talking about, this year in East Timor, thanks to the generous donations of a couple of private donors, but mostly just a crowdfunding campaign that we did earlier this year and a couple of other donations, we're going to be doing 180 installations in East Timor this year, which is quite huge considering, that's all done by donations from, individuals. So we're pretty excited about that. There's also a maternity clinic that we'll be doing, and that's the one for the Timor Adventures Tour, isn't it, Michael? So we'll be working on that.
Furiously trying to get some of the equipment over there right now.
The other area we're working on, hands up, you went to the Community Energy Congress. We're some of you might know, we're actually on the steering group for the Coalition for Community Energy. So this is a group that's been together for about 3 or 4 years now, and it's got about 7 or 8 people on the steering committee, but there's probably about 100 community groups across Australia who are part of it. So we're all about how we can promote, make it easier and provide tools and resources for communities across Australia to do their own community energy projects. The major thing we do as part of the coalition is a congress. We had one earlier this year at Melbourne Town Hall, in which was it 800 people turned up, 600, 800 people were there at the Congress. It had a real buzz. And a part of it that actually was really quite amazing was there was a lot of Indigenous representation at that Congress, and what came out of it is the formation of the First Nations Renewable Energy Alliance. So this is going to be an alliance to look at how we can help. Energy poverty is a real issue in a lot of Aboriginal communities across Australia, especially some of the remote ones and ones at the end of grid lines. And then, hearing some of their stories about their energy bills and what's going on, it is quite crazy. So there's this new alliance that's been put together. The alliance is run by the Aboriginal groups. We're sort of in a bit of a support role. There's a couple of other groups who will be in that support role to help that alliance, get up and going and actually help trying to get a couple of their first projects going as well. So Rob has been instrumental in helping out with that one. So it's slowly but surely, this is a long-term project, this one, on how to get it up and going, but it also means that we're probably doing a bit more engagement on our work in Australia as well. So we've got the Carawan example of what we can do, but we've also done a couple of other projects as well with CAT, which is the Centre for Appropriate Technology, who are based in Alice Springs in northern Queensland. So we had some of our volunteers who'd done work over in East Timor volunteer to do an installation at a ranger's station, which was on the west side of Cape York up in Queensland. So CAT had a lot of their funding decreased over the last few years, like everything else in this federal government. So they still wanted to do this solar project on this Aboriginal ranger station. One way they can cut 20k out of their budget was to actually get volunteer qualified labour to actually do that install. So we use our East Timor volunteers who are qualified in Australia to do remote area systems, to actually go up there, get some training beforehand on working with the Aboriginal communities and do a system. So we'll be looking on how we can roll that out a bit more.
I'm just wondering, is there any issue with translating exactly what you're doing here in Australia?
It doesn't translate exactly, but there's all the lessons we're learning from Timor, and a lot of lessons we're learning are applicable to the Aboriginal communities and vice versa. So there's a bit of cross-pollination between those. The key difference between the work that's done in Australia in remote communities and in Timor is that there are much more stringent rules on installations of systems, so they have to meet Australian standards here, and also the people who install them, at least the key members of the crew that do it have to be accredited. So they have to be licensed electricians, which is lots, and they have to be accredited in the system. So, but apart from that, the kinds of things that we're doing are similar. Some of the systems that we've put in here are bigger systems than we've done too. So that's really the work and the conditions and everything out.
And the loans.
The loan setup is very different, so it's a very different structure for the funding with the Indigenous communities in Australia and this with the communities in East Timor, just because of the kinds of donors that we have, and again with the friendship groups and everything. So even though technically there's similar things and on the ground there are similar challenges, from the funding point of view, we're sort of approached it not independently, but in parallel, so the parallel streams of the work, dipping into the same technical problems.
It's a bit like the technology itself is different, the system configurations, the regulatory environment is different. What's really similar is the community engagement and how that works, and and our know-how as well. So that's the bits that it's like crossover to do. But we'll be looking to do a bit more work there, and we're actually talking at the moment with the New South Wales Land Council. They're wanting us to do a bit of analysis for them on some different sites that they've got in some of their communities around New South Wales as well. The other exciting thing, which is not exciting probably for anyone else except for everyone in the ATA office, is that we're doing a new CRM system, which is a new database. So
What's CRM?
It's a customer relationship management system. So basically, so you'll hear lots of, if you come into the office, you'll hear us talk about the new CRM, but it's actually a really quite big undertaking because we've grown so much as an organisation, and like the membership database we got developed in the 90s, like, on a FileMaker database, and as you can see, we're doing all these bits of activities, and we actually need to join all the bits of information we got in the office into one. So I know no one else is excited about the CRM, but anyway.
What are you using?
We're probably going to Salesforce. So anyone's got experience with Salesforce, come and let me know.
You want what?
Salesforce. And the other thing we'll be working on in the next 6 months, and this is with the board and with staff and with the members as well, is we'll be devising our new strategy. And a lot of it's looking at what do we want the world to look like in 2025? Like, what is it that we want the world to be? And probably in Britain a bit more, especially like in Australia, what's some of the targets and some of the things that we should be actually aiming for if we want this transition to a sustainable society? And it has to be a just transition as well. We need to take everyone along on that journey with us. So what are some of the things that we need to do? So these are some of the things that, we throw around in the office about, what some of these targets and what some of the things that we should be actually striving for. And if that sounds far away, 2025 is not that far away, and what we should be looking at. And the next stage then for us is that organisations go, and what's our role in that? Like, how are we going to help get to here or where we want to be? So our focus always in the past is a lot about enabling, empowering individuals and households and communities, and we do that so well in interacting with people at all these different levels. But it's also made how we actually build that momentum as well. So how do we get, what we're doing here in this room, how do we get that out and build that that community and strength that we need to actually get to these further targets that we want to do. So, and getting to that scale that we need to do, because as we know, the politicians really can't work it out at the moment, and we need them to actually start putting the policy frameworks into place so we can have this just transition. But and how do we actually grow some of that momentum to get some of that change? Because at the moment we've got the community leading it, we've got 2 million households with solar on their roofs already at the moment. So, and the community and a lot of the industry are so far ahead. So, but we need to make sure we bring those politicians along with us for that transition too. So we'll be working on our new strategy, what that be, and we'll be consulting with you guys in probably bit more in a couple of months' time just to get some of your ideas and some of the ideas that we've got together as well. So just to give you a heads up that that's coming. So I suppose this is one of my favourite photos from Sustainable. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Just a quick question. How will you work with potential partners like Climate Council and others like that? You're getting a lot of traction. Obviously, they're very prominent.
Yeah, so we're members of the Climate Action Network Australia. I think it is CANA. I just know it by its acronym. So that's a bit of the overriding coalition that people like the Climate Council and most other climate action groups and big environmental organisations across Australia are members of. So we're members of that as well. So we sort of play to our strengths in a way that we get contact by the Climate Council, especially they've got their Climate Media Centre as well. That's, for example, when the South Australian blackouts went out, we're going, hey, actually we've got one or two of our members, they had battery storage systems, lights didn't notice the lights had gone out, actually, having virtually community meetings, everyone came to their house, so we can provide them those case studies which they can use on their work as well. So it's not replicating, it's like stripping in and going, okay, how can we actually work together to get the end result that we can do? And I sort of been talking about together about individual action. So, as I say, this is my favourite photo from Sustainable House Day, and you never see someone so excited about looking at greywater systems until you go to Sustainable House Day. And I think that's why I love this one so much. So this is the owner at the front and some of the visitors at the back. And I think it's just to show you some of the joy of actually people talking to each other and what they can actually do. And there's that individual action, but what we want to do is help build this as well. So this is the photo from the Community Energy Congress from earlier this year. And, people from there would say they were just, it is the energy in the room that was probably one of the powerful things into the Community Energy Congress. And what we need then, all those 800 people to go off into their own communities and help building up the momentum there as well. So for us, it's more like, how can we keep on getting a bit more of this buzz and this momentum out to the broader community too? So that's all for me for now. Has anyone got any questions before Andrew does his presentation? Cool, good. All right, we need to do a song and dance while we get the IT situation sorted? Or?
Probably. I'm not sure how to drive this. Might be easy. Let's just open it, do you reckon? Or? Alright, cool. So I gave this presentation last night at the Lyceum Club, which is the female version of the Melbourne Club. So I had my suit and tie on for that. I've dressed down a bit for tonight. I hope you don't mind. And but I'll probably step up the level of detail in some of the slides and skim over some of the basic stuff, because most of the people here are already pretty switched on to most of these subjects, I think.
Keep your voice up. Yeah.
Voice up? Okay, yep. If I'm too quiet, just let me know. Yeah. I'm not sure how much time I've got. Anyone got a guide? You? Okay. That's good. All right, so here's what I've got to talk about. I'll obviously skip over the first bit. We've already covered that in lots of detail. So I'll start off talking about our electricity bills, and then show how that fits in with the broader energy market and energy system, and to talk about the future, and then come back to households again at the end, and how does it all fit together. I'll skip over this. All right, so this is some extracts from my own electricity bill. So my retailer is Diamond Energy. Heaps of choice out there about who your retailer is. We've got a competitive market in most of Australia. In a few places we don't, but most places we do. City Power is my distributor because I'm in their area. They own all the poles and wires. No choice about that. We don't, like thankfully, we don't have a competitive market with duplicate poles and wires competing with each other down the same street. That would be even more silly. Okay, so on my bill, we've got the energy charges. I'm going to 7 till 11. On weekdays, I'm paying a higher rate than the rest of the time. That was a choice, and there's a fixed charge as well. So I'll refer back to that on some later slides, but I think most people would be pretty familiar with that sort of thing. And down the bottom, the red bars are peak electricity consumption in kilowatt hours on each day, and the pink bars is the off-peak in addition to that. So you'll see some days where it's only pink, that's weekends, because it's only off-peak on the weekends for me. And the green on the negative axis is exporting back to the grid, feeding into the grid from my solar system. All right, so just very broad numbers. How significant is energy in people's household budgets? Well, across gas and electricity, just a typical number would be around $3,000 a year probably. So in Victoria, we tend to use gas for heating, hot water and cooking, especially around Melbourne and Geelong. But in other parts of Australia, it's much less common. So if you're an all-electric home, then most of that cost will be in your electricity bill, all of it. But yeah, it varies hugely. We've got massive ranges from houses that use ducted whole house air conditioning on a thermostat, so it's basically going almost all the time. Pool pumps, all that sort of stuff, down to really frugal houses that don't use much electricity and maybe their heating and hot water is gas or firewood or something. So yeah, there's a lot of variation out there. So anything we're talking about is not one size fits all.
So I'm guessing that when you're looking at a household of 4 kilowatts, it infers perhaps gas hot water, gas stove tops and gas ducted heating.
Most likely,
Most
yep.
likely.
Yep. We in the ATA we have a lot of off-grid members, and they tend to be on the lower end of the scale. A lot of them might be 4 or 5 kilowatt hours per day. Gas or firewood usually for the heating the house and hot water. Yeah, and passive solar, of course. Yeah. The other point is that's households, but actually households are a minority of the electricity consumption. And so of the businesses and the big industrial sites. As an example, the Portland aluminium smelter run by Alcoa, it's about 10% of Victoria's electricity consumption, just that one site. So yeah, we have to keep those things in mind as well. All right, so on the bill, we're looking at how we're paying the money, but where does that go just looking at electricity for now. So the pink slice of the pie is the biggest one, and that's not paying for energy at all. It's not an energy cost. It's just maintaining the poles and wires, transformers, substations, all of that infrastructure, maintaining and expanding, and paying for the private companies to make their profit on it. The green slice is the next highest one, and so that's the wholesale electricity cost. So in my case, from say tonight from 6 o'clock to 6:30 at my house, I might have used say 1 kilowatt hour of electricity. So that's recorded against Diamond Energy as my retailer, and they're a player in the electricity market. So they have to pay into the market on the wholesale price for that 1 kilowatt hour. So that's what that green slice represents there. Speaking of the retailers, so the light green slice is the retail cost. So that's for all the retailers to run their call centres and their IT systems and all that stuff to do the billing. The pink slice is for their retail margin, so their profit. And one of the really interesting things here, I've just picked out 2 states, but it's not immediately obvious why retailers should make a higher retail margin in Victoria than they do in New South Wales. And yeah, it's a bit of a mystery, and quite a few consultants and economists have asked that question. And yeah, it could just be that these big multi-state companies, retailers, are just choosing to take more profits from Victoria than from New South Wales. So it may be that we're subsidising our cousins over there. But on the other hand, New South Wales has a higher relative cost in the network charges. It's partly because they're a less compact state, so the infrastructure has to be more extensive. But it may also be due to the fact that some of the networks are still government owned, and they're returning it's money back to the government, and the government may be trying to do that to sell them off, to make them look attractive to private investors. So yeah, all of those things are part of the mix. But I'll be referring to this sort of concept later on. So just keep in mind, especially the pink pie chart, which is the network, and the green slice, which is the wholesale energy. Because the next few slides will be talking about both of those.
What's the little blue thing that's not that?
It's probably a few things like paying for the Australian Energy Market Operator. So they're a not-for-profit organisation, but not in the sense that we know it. But they're funded by taking a slice of all our bills. Yeah, it'll be little bits and pieces like that. Yeah, they're paying for Energy Consumers Australia, which is a body that's been set up to represent consumers and advocate for them. All those small things, mostly. Oh yeah, one other thing here. So one common misconception is if we think back to that electricity bill, there's those fixed daily charges, say $1 per day, roughly. A lot of people think that covers the cost of the network, of your fair amount to pay for your slice of your share of all those network costs. Actually, it doesn't. That's not enough. So some of what we pay for our energy cost, our per kilowatt hour charges, is not actually paying for wholesale energy. It's also paying for the network. So that's another interesting fact. All right. So the national electricity market. On this slide, it's referring the NEM. It's referring to the physical infrastructure, but also has a second meaning, which I'll come back to later, which is like the market of selling and buying wholesale energy. So it's sort of a dual meaning term. And yeah, it's a big network. And the reason why it's so big is mostly due to the peak demand, which is driven in most states by the air conditioning demand on peak times. So in South Australia, they're probably the most extreme. If you look at 2 summer days in South Australia, one's a heat wave, so they're getting up to 45 degrees or whatever. Another one's a mild day. Electricity demand on a hot day can be double the mild day, just because everyone's got all their air cons on at the same time. So most of the time, the poles and wires are not stressed at all. They're way underutilised. So everyone's paying for an infrastructure that's bigger than it needs to be, except for say 40 hours a year. So yeah, that's a major factor. Still talking about the networks, the electricity distributors and transmission companies. So they're private companies pretty much in most of the NEM. However, they're a natural monopoly. As I said, you don't have competing sets of power lines. So they have to be regulated. So the the business will make a case of, okay, here's how much money we have to spend on maintenance and upgrades and all that stuff, and then and here's how much of a profit we want to make, and therefore here's what our charges are going to be. So my retailer, Diamond Energy, as an example, so that from 6 o'clock to 6:30 tonight, I use 1 kilowatt hour. Diamond Energy has to buy the electricity, pay for that energy in the wholesale market, and they also have to pay City Power, my distributor, a charge per kilowatt hour for that 1 kilowatt hour to pay for the network. So what those charges are get approved by the regulator on a 5-yearly basis. It's a low-risk business, and there have been pretty severe arguments between regulators and the private businesses, and even gone to court. All right, so let's move on to energy. So, each state can have a slightly different wholesale electricity price, and it varies all the time. It's almost like the stock market. Like share prices are always going up and down. It's the same with that wholesale energy price.
What's causing the variation?
It's mostly supply and demand. Okay, so each generator bids into the market for what price they're willing to accept to supply their electricity in. So you might have a coal-fired power station bidding, like an old coal-fired power station bidding 5 cents per kilowatt hour. You might have an expensive gas plant that bids in at 10 cents per kilowatt hour, and a wind farm saying, zero. I'll just sell my electricity for whatever. It costs me nothing to produce it because the wind's free, right? And so every 5 minutes, the Australian Energy Market Operator, AEMO, is looking at all these bids into the market and seeing what the demand is and going, oh, okay, well, coal's cheapest, so we'll let them run as hard as they want. Okay, what's left over to meet the demand? Okay, wind's cheapest, we'll run them first, coal second. Then, okay, what's left? Well, we've still got a gap. All right, so we'll tell the gas-fired power station to run. And even though they may be just covering that last little bit of the demand for electricity, that price that they bid it in, say the 10 cents per kilowatt hour, that sets the price for all of them, and all of them get paid that 10 cents, the coal and the wind and the gas, even though they only bid it in a small amount. Yeah, that's how it works.
So you said 5 minutes, that says half an hour, it's not every 5 minutes or every half an hour? That's quite contentious at the moment, actually. Right, so it's unknown. Right.
And it's quite tricky. I might not go into all the details,
okay,
but basically they're scheduled on a 5-minute basis. So AEMO's going, right, you guys speed up, you guys slow down, right? Because we don't have much energy storage in the system, hardly any. So it has to be adjusted like minute by minute for the supply to meet the demand, right? But then when they do the final financial settlement, that's on a half-hour basis. Yeah, and and they can cheat. That's right. There's.
What do you mean can?
The word is have a duty to maximise their shareholder returns.
The senior management effects on his Enron is still.
Yep.
And they did exactly the same thing.
I'm not too familiar about the Enron case, but
They did exactly the same thing
Okay.
that happened in South Australia when they forced the prices up to 40,000.
Okay. Well,
It's still in
the regulator here has been quoted as saying that the practices going on are quite within the rules here. So it's quite surprising. Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about retailers paying generators. Yeah, sorry.
I was just thinking with, like you're a gas generator with a high price,
Yeah.
and you bid. I mean, if you bid with, suddenly you've got to supply the power, presumably you've got no time to start your stuff up. Or do you have to keep rolling all the time just in case you win your bid?
AEMO takes all that into account. So AEMO's computer systems have information on how long it takes these generators to start up and all those factors, and also the transmission lines, what the constraints are. So, okay, Victorian coal, brown coal may be cheapest at the moment, but you've only got a limited capacity to send that to New South Wales, so they take that into account as well. So even though the black coal over there may be more expensive, they're going to run it because they can't get as much as they need from Victoria. Yeah, so it's incredibly complex systems. In fact, apparently this is one of the drivers for the early computers was to be able to simulate electricity grids and operate them. Yeah. All right, so yeah, it can be a very volatile price, and when we do have those heat wave times, or when the demand really spikes up high, then the wholesale price can get up to $16 per kilowatt hour, $16,000 per megawatt hour. That's right.
14,000.
Sorry.
14,000.
I think it's
I know
got.
it's gone up.
I think it's the market cap's gone up now. Yeah. So that seems ridiculous. Like generators who are supplying at that time would just make massive amounts of money. But it's an intentional feature of the market design.
Money.
Sorry?
Designed to make money.
Well, yeah, but it's also designed to, like in the traditional system, you're not going to build coal-fired power stations to meet those exceptional peaks that only happen 40 hours a year, right? That would, you'd have these massive infrastructure just idle for almost all the time. So what they normally did was have hydro and simple gas-fired power stations that they would sit idle most of the time, but you need them just at those peaks, right? So how are they going to make money if they're only running like 40 hours a year? Well, in our current market design, the way that those businesses can operate and are economically viable is that when they do run, they make bucket loads of money. So
It was 40 hours, they made 25% of their income for the year.
yeah, that's great. Thanks, Rob. So yeah, it's quite an amazing system. It is pretty cutthroat. You have people whose whole careers like trading energy on this system and working out when to start generators and turn them off and all that stuff. And it's almost like the stock market. And the wholesale price has recently doubled. So if we have a look on the chart, so it's around $40 a megawatt hour, so it's like 4 cents per kilowatt hour. And yeah, now it's more like 10 cents per kilowatt hour, $100 per megawatt hour. So that's a pretty substantial change.
So from 1999 to 2015, it was 4 cents flat.
Double.
Yep, with fluctuations, but yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What happened in 2007?
2007.
The water shortage. So hydro went off.
Probably yeah.
So hydro takes the peaks. Hydro is the first one to take the peaks. And that was the head of the drought. So the snow stopped producing last year.
Okay, so the recent price increase. Okay, here's my best understanding of why. It may not be the whole picture, but okay, so old coal-fired power stations, the average age is like 30, 35 years, built in the 1980s. So they paid off their finance ages ago, so they can run pretty cheaply. It's like having an old motel or an old taxi that you pretty much got your return on it already, and you just keep it ticking over while you're making money. So Hazelwood was the oldest, 1968, I think. I don't know if you've seen any of pictures of the inside, but the control room looked like a World War II submarine or something. It was like with dials and switches, and yeah, looked like a museum actually. So closed. The ABC quoted the CEO as saying that, yeah, basically the boilers were stuffed. They'd already done the short-term fixes, and now they're up for $0.4 billion to fix up the boilers. So yeah, it was pretty much game over. They didn't give much notice, and there's quite a lot of capacity, 1,600 megawatts.
Who didn't give much notice?
Yeah, the owners of Hazelwood,
Oh,
which
yeah,
is
and I think that's a real perfect, that one.
yeah.
Well, everybody knew it was going to close, right? It was just about when.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, everyone knew it was going to close, but they were giving signals of 2025 or 20.